Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a great privilege and pleasure to be here addressing the Smart City gathering for Nashik. And thank you, Harshad, for that entertaining first PPT. It does set a lot of precedence into what we are going to look at. So I am going to talk about Smart City and beyond the single planning paradigm. As Harshad rightly said, he took an example of how we would like to see Nashik, or for that matter, any smart city, look at how they're going to plan their mobility. That is just one case of how we are going to look at the planning. But there are instances where in the existing smart cities give us a lot of ideas, a lot of learnings, which we need to imbibe going forward to be building smarter cities for us to talk about. So I represent UST Global, and this is what we are going to look at today. A brief agenda of what we're going to look is what is Smart City all about, and how do we approach the planning from beyond what is happening today. And can we building an agility in the planning for a more efficient smart city implementation, and how do we go beyond the current single planning paradigm, which is where we are stuck at with many of the smart cities. To give you a brief overview of what our UST Global is all about, we are a US-based company. We have a focus in public sector, education assessment, healthcare, and we have been warmly welcomed by the state of Maharashtra to have been partnering with them for their examination solutions in Maharashtra. And our idea is that we will focus on a fewer clients, which enables us to give more attention to details. So from the strength perspective, we are a 17,000 plus organization, and we have over 54 delivery centers, which has focus on the latest technologies, be it the AI, NLP, MI, whatever. We are focusing to deliver value to our customers. Without much ado, let me move on to the next slide. What is Smart City all about? A generic search on internet reveals multiple definitions of a smart city, because we cannot put a proper definition to a smart city. However, this one looked a very closer interpretation of what we want our cities to look like. A smart city is a one which not only possesses the ICT technologies, but it also helps us to leverage those technologies to add value to the community that we are in. So today, a lot of these smart city infographic talk about these things. We have smart mobility, we have smart agility, we have big data, we have IoT, we have smart offices, smart buildings, and everywhere we say is smart. But what is the missing point from all these things? So there is a major component which is missing today, which our Bapu, Gandhiji, clearly mentioned: customer is the king. For any city, for that matter, because our citizens are the first customers for the city. Now, any smart city that needs to have a development propaganda, an agenda, needs to keep its citizens at its center. And the enablement of the smart citizen should be at the center of the smart city. Let us, for a moment, take a look at how a typical approach to smart city is centered today. So we are looking at from an IT infrastructure perspective and a physical infrastructure perspective, which is the measurement layer today. Then we are going to support it with the infrastructure layer. On top of it, an application layer, integration, and these are some of the layers which are built on top. Today, in India and across the globe, the focus remains on these physical layers today. Not to miss the fact, they are very important aspects of any smart city, because without these smart components, none of the smart city that we envisage is going to happen. However, we strongly believe the citizen focus is something which needs to be brought in. Like the previous presentation that we just saw, when we see that the preferred mode of transport should be to enable a smart mobility, is by the way people choose to look at how they can use a public mode of transport, cycling and walk. That is something which the citizen would need. Today, if you ask anybody who is living in major cities like Mumbai or Delhi, given a choice where the public transportation is pretty much available, they would rather choose that instead of taking their own vehicles. So that is the kind of focus the citizens need. Citizen services should be what we need to keep in mind when we define the smart cities. So this is precisely where we are coming from. We strongly believe that the action layer, which is the decision support layer which the smart city planners need to have today, they need to be aware of what is the end outcome of when they design the smart cities. The infrastructure layers invariably are going to support it. But if you look at what is happening today, the existing smart city architecture does not allow us to go back and look at what changes can be made on the fly. In short, they are not agile from a requirements perspective. We have a set RFP, we have a set of requirements that needs to be met, and we are stuck with them during the implementation course. Now, when a smart city is envisaged bottom up, wherein we are focusing on how the physical infrastructure is going to support the smart city, the essence of citizen services is being lost today. As we know, there are going to be technological advances, and the edge devices and the supporting physical infrastructure are going to have a certain lifetime to it. But a smart city is not just envisaged for 5 years. It is for a futuristic development of a city, which needs to be inclusive. So the infrastructure that is being defined today needs to keep that in mind. A classic example is what we saw of the Seoul. If there is an intervention which is required, the smart city planner should be capable enough of understanding that there is an intervention required, an introspection required, and course correction needs to be put in place. Not just that. Today, there are certain departments, all the departments will have mandatory requirements which they are taking from the citizens as well as from various departments. But these requirements are also going to change over a point in time. So does the smart city architecture and the requirement cater to all these information? Very clearly, Accenture has done a study and published this, but a very fantastic wording says, smart cities must start with the citizen's need, not the technology, and build new services through human-centered design. The classic example of how a transportation can affect the smart city needs to be done from a perspective of how its citizen would like to see each of its services, not just mobility, be it healthcare, be it water requirement, electricity building. What is it that they need to do today? There are technologies available today which can enable these within a blink of an eye, be it a blockchain implementation, an AI implementation, etc. There are multiple examples of how cities are going smart. Even small localities are going smart. Are we prepared to look into those aspects? With the push today that Government of India is looking at phasing out all the gasoline or the petrol-driven vehicles and move towards a more greener, efficient transportation system. Does our smart city outlook cater to that in the coming years? So these are some of these questions that the smart city planners would like to, I would like to request them to take a look at and design the smart cities going from that perspective. Now we talked about how agility can help in planning. So is there a methodology to which we can look into it? Definitely. So at the core of any smart city planning, we believe that outcome should be at the center, wherein a citizen services and how the smart city planners would like the city to progress should be at the center. Then we define what are all the basic citizen services that needs to be there in the city, be it mobility, be it health, be it education, be it surveillance, and the interconnection between the departments. All these things are perpetual and they are very much in cyclic nature. UST strongly believes that defining these basic services will help in running the smart city more efficiently. Now, is it just enough if we define and run a certain smart city requirements? No, we need to be optimal enough, and the services need to be optimal enough so that the city is able to take in any changes which come in during the course of a design. So that is where we believe this operation of define, run, and optimize needs to be the new mantra when we define smart city requirements. This is not just supported by us. The Open and Agile Smart City Consortium also agrees to that. And the latest implementation from South Africa, South Korea, Brazil has given us a lot of inputs on how infrastructure-led smart city planning is bound to fail. So can we go beyond a single paradigm, a single planning paradigm? So like I said earlier, smart cities need intervention. They will need introspection and course correction, because this is not just we are not going to run this as a project. This is an implementation which is going to take a lifetime. This is going to get better over a period of time. So if there are any challenges that we come across, we need to introspect and see if there is a course correction required, which is definitely going to help. So our focus should be more from how we define the customer services, how the focus of the smart city services are going to be, and the underlying layers, the underlying infrastructure should be able to cater to what is the requirement which will be coming up over a course of few years. To take in the term of physics, astrophysics to be precise, singularity is what we say as the event horizon, beyond which there is no point of return. We don't want the smart cities to look at just being a singular nodal requirement specification. Rather, there should be an inclusive one which says, okay, today if the smart mobility technology is not helping me becoming smart, we should look and cater to what other technologies are there, what are the other interventions available to ensure that we are able to define and run the services which will provide the optimal solution for any smart cities to run. With that, I'll take leave. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them.